And we're back live. Habaragani, glad to see you today. I woke up this morning and I realized it was December 11th, and December 11th is my parents' anniversary. My mom passed in 1998, and my father is still living strong, going strong, and vibrating strongly here on this plane. So I called him this morning. I said, "Hey, I know it's been a while since Mom passed, but if it wasn't for this day, I wouldn't be around. So happy anniversary!" So I said, when did you guys get married? He said 1956. I was like, wow. And they got married in this chapel that's right across the street now from the Berkeley BART station. And instead of a chapel, it's some kind of ski chalet. But anyway, happy anniversary, Dad. Today, we're going to talk about the merry mess. And I know I'm such a killjoy at these seasons, like I'm M.O. Downer, because, I know the icery of the day, but, like many of you, I get caught up. I listen to the radio, so when Nat King Cole comes on, when Chestnuts Roasted, I love that song. Or when Eartha Kitt, Santa Baby. My children love Santa Claus Goes Straight to the Ghetto by James Brown. And who can do without? It's not the season if you don't hear Donny Hathaway this Christmas. And you know what? I was talking to my friend Tony Sylvia, and Tony is a music producer. He was a music producer, and he had a hit record that went to 11 on the charts. And we were co-workers, and we would always talk every day. Go on walks, eat lunch together. And one of the things that he said is that Kwanzaa needs a hit record. We need like a hit record for Kwanzaa. So all of you who are in the sound of my voice that have some type of influence, if you have some influence with, like Snoop or, The Weeknd or The Baby. Let me back up. The Baby. I saw The Baby on SNL. I wanted to slap him. It keeps perpetuating the stereotype. But, okay, if you know somebody that's popular in music now, encourage them to write a song about Kwanzaa. They don't even have to deal with the whole concept of Kwanzaa. They could just take one word, like Rita Marley did. She wrote a song called Harambe, which is what we say at Kwanzaa, that means let's pull together. Okay, I'm not supposed to be talking about Kwanzaa. I'm supposed to be talking about the merry mess today. And before I do that, I want to play this song by one of my favorite reggae artists, Maccabee, and it's called Christmas Has Been Canceled. Listen good.
Here's a Christmas cancel Rasta. Yo, we done with the commercial Christmas with its pagan symbols and pagan origins and the attacking of the children's mind for material gain. We're not playing that game. Seeing talk. Christmas has been cancelled. It's been postponed. No longer celebrated in our home. Pagan things, we try to leave them alone. Incorporated into Christianity by Rome. We're using our brain, we're breaking the chain. We're not playing the Christmas game. What a shame. We're using our brain, we're breaking the chain. We're not playing the Christmas game. All the drunkenness and the overeating. Is it the birth of Christ they're celebrating? Mostly non-Christians are partaking. For some it's just an excuse for money making. There's a peace and goodwill toward men.
All right, I love that song. Christmas Has Been Canceled, and that's the song that I would play in the car to my sons, because I didn't want to get them. I didn't want to get their mind all confused with this Christmas stuff, because it's really not what people tell us. You when you're young, you're taught different things, and when you grow up, it just really don't make sense. For instance, I was trying to, as a young person, trying to connect Jesus with Santa. I was really trying trying to determine how that, you know, what was the connection between that? What did one have to do with the other? And then, you know, it wasn't until I got grown when I started reading and researching and finding out this just isn't what they said it was. So now I'm going back. I'm going forward. We never want to go backwards. We want to go forward. I'm going forward again. The last time we spoke, we talked about Misgiving Day and a lot of things associated with the holiday that most people call Thanksgiving Day. And we referred to the book by Isa Musa Shango, Reverend Isa Musa Shango, African Holidays, African People and European Holidays, a Mental Genocide. African People, European Holidays, a Mental Genocide. Yeah, I mean, your mind really gets all twisted and all, as Bob Marley would say, wingy-wongy, you know, trying to understand these things. So here's Reverend Isa Musa Shango. He passed away in the 90s, I believe. And so he had a church called the Church of the Black Messiah in Washington, D.C. Now, this is me. You can see my face. Look at my bewilderment. Mommy, who is this man? You know, I'm glad I wasn't crying. Looks like I'm about to, though. You know, but I'm looking like, ugh, let me get away from this. Do I have to sit down with this man? Okay. So I want to start here. Now, this is a picture of some of the original Wose Community Church of Sacramento elders. And I want to focus on this man here. This is Reverend Robertson. Reverend Robertson was like a wizard. He knew so much about the Bible and the body and the physiology and how that was connected. And so he came, he says, I'm trying to help you build up your church. You know, one of the things he was, I mean, one time we used to give classes at the Oak Park Center, and we had a demonstration of capoeira. Capoeira is the Brazilian martial arts that came from Angola. We had a brother by the name of Sola. He was the capoeista, the maestro that demonstrated that day. And, you know, he had us all in a circle, and, you know, he had different people doing Jenga, you know, just people that just came that night. There were about like 30 or 40 people that night. And then Reverend Robertson, you know, now Reverend Robertson, he's like in his 90s now, and so he was like in his late 70s back then, and he came out in the middle and fell down on the ground and started doing the splits. You know, it scared everybody. But anyway, Reverend Robertson told me this about this day that's called Christmas. He said, you need to go back to Luke 1:26 through 38. Luke 1:26 through 38. And the reason why he pointed that out, he said, because this first sentence, it says, in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God to a city of Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David. And the virgin's name was Mary. And he came to her, well, you know the story. He came to her and he was announcing that she was going to get impregnated by a ghost called the Holy Spirit. So she was like, hey, you know, what am I going to tell my husband? That I got impregnated by a ghost? You know, he's not going to go for that. And the Gabriel said, okay, you know, we're going to do something to work on his mind, to get him to accept it. But the key point here is in the 6th month. Now, were they talking about the Gregorian calendar? Were they talking about the Julian calendar? Or were they talking about the Hebrew calendar? You see, the Julian calendar is a calendar that was done, that was put together by under the administration of Julius the Caesar. And at that time, the first of the year was like in April. And then centuries later, St. Gregory or Pope Gregory comes along, and through his administration, they produce the Gregorian calendar. And that's why people are called April Fools, because if people did not, France was, I think, one of the stragglers, that was resistant to changing the calendar, and they were referred to as April Fools because they wanted to continue to start the year on April 1st. But they're not talking about either one of those calendars. They are talking about the Hebrew calendar. And so the Hebrew calendar, the first month is Nisan. And it starts, kind of like in the middle of, it's a lunar calendar, so it doesn't always start on the same day, because the moon will be in a different phase or a different period, each year. So it's generally March, April. So if you count, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that would mean in September, Elul. And September is the time of Virgo, the Virgin. We're going to talk about that later. And then, so 9 months later, here, anyway, 3 months later, here we are at this time. So we need to get our things straight on our calendars. Now, all this story goes back to ancient Kemet. Now, this is a scene from one of the temples. Some people have said that this is found at the Grand Lodge of Luxor. And here you see the Neter Chehudi. He's announcing to the Virgin that she's going to become pregnant. And then she's impregnant by Khnum and Het Hor, or Het Horu. And they're impregnated, they're giving her the signs of life. And Khnum was called the potter. There's a minister out there now. He has a show called The Potter's Wheel. Well, this is where this concept comes from. Khnum was actually making people on his potter's wheel. So here he is giving, impregnating the Virgin. And here she is on the birthing stool. And then she gives birth. And all these people are here in adoration. This is in stone. Here's another example of it. It's not any clearer, just kind of a sepia tone. But see, this concept of virgin birth, all of these things comes out of Kemet. So I had to verify this. I sent a message to my friend Muhammad Fahmy. He's a tour guide that I had such a wonderful time with in Kemet last year, last September of 2018. And I said, hey man, have you ever seen this? Because when we was at Luxor, I didn't see it. And he wrote back. He says, hi brother, looks like the birth scene from Hatshepsut's temple. There's another typical one at Luxor. That's where we were. I can't read the cartouche. Do you have a higher resolution picture? And I did not. And he says, it is Hatshepsut's birth scene. He says, and then I said, thank you. He said, no problem, my friend. I'm sorry. I always run away. I'm always on the run away from home and my database. So he has so much information related to this. So this is an actual scene that the Africans, in our cosmology, in our theology, talked about. Virgin birth, saviors, all of these things. Now, there's the question about this guy called Santa Claus, and it's a whole bag of vices of every kind when you really start looking at it. And then if you examine it, if you just look at it on the surface, you just say, okay, yeah, Merry Christmas, mistletoe. Actually, when I was growing up and I hit like high school, I kind of liked the mistletoe part, but that's another set, because you got to kiss beautiful girls at at Christmas time. So there's different hooks and how to get you and wrapped up in this whole thing. But did you know there was a Neteru called Bess in Kemet, who is the prototype of Santa Claus? And I took this picture when I was going, just as you're coming in the gate, on the right-hand side at the temple of Dindara, or Dindara, however the emphasis is, you see this a picture of the Neteru Bess, the Neter Bess. And Bess was the patron saint of women and children, and he gave gifts to children. So here we have, he's rotund. He's a diminutive person or a toi person. I don't like that word pygmy because it's a pejorative term. They refer to themselves as toi, and they're actually some of the most ancient people. And you can go all around the world. You can find little pockets of where they've been or where they still are. Even in places like the Philippines and different places in Africa, there are these diminutive blacks that are referred to as the Twa people. So here he is, and he's also referred to as coming from the north. So look him up in relationship, if you do your search, on the Neter, or the Egyptian god Bes, B-E-S, and Santa Claus, or Bes is the origin of Santa Claus, and you'll see the connection. I wrote a little description. Let me try to read it here. It says, some Christians believe that the Santa Claus concept came from the pagan Egyptian god Bes, a rotund, gnome-like personage who was the patron of little children. Bes was said to live at the North Pole, working year-round to produce toys for children. Wow! I don't think they said the North Pole, but he said he came from the north. That's really something. So, and also I don't have the picture, but Saint Nicholas, or Old Saint Nick, was actually a Coptic monk that was in Turkey. And when you see different pictures of him, he looks like an Ethiopian. I'm sorry I didn't include that, but you can do a search. Your homework assignment today is to look up Saint Nicholas / Egyptian monk, Ethiopian monk or priest, and you'll see he looks like an Ethiopian or Somalian or Eritrean, people from that region today. All right, now moving on, as I was doing some further research, I found, now this is a representation of Orion. And, I don't necessarily agree with this picture part at the bottom, because I found out there's actually 9 great pyramids at the center of Giza. And one was quarried. I was actually taken to the spot where the top of one of them is that hasn't been unearthed. Remember that only 20% of the monuments, temples, tombs in ancient Kemet have been unearthed. Majority of them are still underneath the sand. But I like this from the terms of, okay, this is Orion. And Orion has these 3 stars in his belt. That's when you look up at the sky, you can see that it's Orion because there's 3 distinctive stars in this belt. And so this is the Greek version of it. And this is the Nordic version, Thor. We're still actually worshiping or recognizing Thor today, because when we look at the days of the year, so Sunday, moon, Monday, Tuesday is Mars, Wednesday is Woden, or Thor's father, Thursday is Thor's day. So we go from Orion, you know, in the Kemetic sense, or Sahu, to the Orion in the Greek sense, to Thor, to Santa. See that? See that connection? And then here we are again. When you see, I don't know, is that coming out good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's the original, and he's on this boat. He's on his star boat, and then Santa on his sleigh. Christmas has been canceled. It's been postponed. All right. So now, my wife's grandfather, we refer to him as Granddaddy, Williams Jennings Pope. He was a holiness minister, and you know, toward the end of his life, my mother-in-law was taking care of him. You know, he was able to take care of himself, but she was there at the house, and Granddaddy would be walking around the house around this time of year, and he would say, "Jesus is the reason for the season." He had a kind of a slight high-pitched voice, but this is actually the reason of the season. It's really talking about an astronomical event. So here we see the scientific event where, see, December 21st is the shortest day of the year. And it is said that the sun dies on that day. And so because it's at the most southernest point of its ecliptical orbit, just as it appears to the earth. And then it stays there. It doesn't make a noticeable movement from our eyes from the earth until, so it's there, December 22nd, December 23rd, December 24th. December 25th is when it starts to move northward. And that's when the sun is born. The sun is reborn. And here, this is the way the ancients along the Nile pictured it. Here you have the sun, you have Ra, you have the Ankh, life, you have Aset or Isis, you have Nebhet, and these are Wasir or Osiris's sisters. And here, this Jed pillar actually represents the backbone of Osiris or Wasir. And then here, you know, centuries later, it became Mary, Mary Magdalene, and Jesus. So this is the reason for the season. They put these astronomical events in myths and fables so that people could remember them. But they're really not to be taken literally. All right, here, see, the three wise men. So yeah, the three wise men. And they are going, this is really the three wise men. The stars in Orion's belt. And they are pointing to the star of the east, Sirius. Right? That's what it's talking about. Here we are again. The astrology, the source of the Jesus story. The belt of Orion, the three wise men, and Sirius is the star of Bethlehem. And then the Son of God is born. I'm sorry to ruin it for you. You know what? I was telling my son, my youngest son, Kaba, when he was, I don't know, he was about like 5 or 6. And what we would do is we would not celebrate, we would not have a Christmas tree at our house. But, you know, my mother-in-law, I love her dearly, and she really goes all out for Christmas, and she celebrates it, and she has a wonderful Christmas tree, and we go down and we have dinner with her, and there are presents underneath the tree. And so at that time we sent our sons to their grandmothers to celebrate. So they get to, do all that, but we would tell them, hey, this is not a real thing. And so I was talking to Kaba one day and I said, hey, man, I just want you to know that this is, there's no real Santa Claus. It's really, me, your mom, your aunties, your uncle, your grandparents that's giving you these gifts. And he looked at me, he says, I know. He says, but I don't want Granny to know. I don't want Granny to know that I know, so I'll stop getting my gifts. So I said, okay, man, I won't let on. So we had that little agreement. Now, many of you have heard of the wonderful scholar Astra Kwesi, and he's traveled to Kemet, I don't know, 18 or 19 times, probably more than that. And he's lectured all over the world. He goes over, he does primary research, and in his video, African Origin of Christianity. Now, Astra, if you're watching this, I did not copy anything from your video, because on your videos, you say, don't copy things from my video. I'm using these videos to help support my family. So I want you to know that I did not copy this from your video, but it's out on the internet, and these were things that you put in your video, Astra. And here it's talking about Ka-mes. Ka, the Kemetic symbol for the soul or the double, and mes, which means birth or rebirth. So what that is saying in a Kemetic sense is the rebirth of the spirit, rebirth of the soul. And so he shows here, the glyphs, the pet or heaven. And then he has the Sahu, the 3 stars in Orion's belt. And then this bowl-like shape, that's the symbol for Neb or Lord. And then, remember when I was showing you the calendar and it says that the birth of Jesus happened in the September region? I forgot the name of the month that quickly. So it's Elul. So, and that was September. All right, here is an illustration of what Astra was showing. So this is Virgo, the virgin. So the son is born of a virgin. All right, and then he shows it again here. When they put these pictures on, and they show the 3 wise men, and they show the virgin, and they show the star series, and so the sun, they're really talking about something that's astronomical. Now, these things all affect us. We on Earth get energy in various forms from the star Sirius, from the star Orion, and of course, from our own parent star. All right. Now, I was to move on. I was reading in Gerald Massey's book, Ancient Egypt, Light of the World, and he's talking about the flaming sword that kept the tree of life, that's kept at the tree of life at the gates of paradise. And when I looked at it, and this is it here, when I looked at it, I said, you know what? This looks like a Christmas tree. The star, it's got, and here people are praising it. We already had these symbols. This looks just like a Christmas tree, but this here are the flaming swords to keep the tree of life, to protect the tree of life in paradise. Wow. All right, and you know what? I was just walking one day, minding my own business, and I looked up, this was in the morning, and I looked up, and right over a Douglas fir tree was the symbol of Ra. Or at this moment, it's Kepler, or the bringer into being, because it's still in the morning. It's not. Ra is at noon, the Most High. And look, it's right over the tree, and that's the star. So that's a real life depiction of that. Now, getting back to, we mentioned him earlier, getting back to Reverend Isa Musa Boroshango and his book, African People, European Holidays, a Mental Genocide. He says this about the date, the birth date of December 25th. He says, the life of Jesus, December 25th, as the birth date of Jesus the Christ was not adopted until 325 AD. Wow. So they didn't recognize his birthday until 325 years after he died. Just think about that. So this was done at the Nicene Council, and this was in Turkey or Asia Minor, in an effort to harmonize and systematize the complex and diverse Christian dogma which existed at the time. A council of 318 bishops met at the city of Nicaea in the kingdom of Bithynia in today's Turkey, at the mandate of the Roman Emperor Constantine. The date accepted by the majority of the European bishops assembled was not finalized until the publishing of the Philoxian calendar by the Roman Catholic Church in 354 AD, or CE, the Common Era, Christian Era. Note, this date was not set 325 years after the birth of Note how this date was set some 325 years after the birth of Jesus was supposed to have taken place. Observation on the part of the European Christian Church that other rival religions celebrated the birthday of their Savior was the motivating factor behind this action. So the European Christian decided to set aside a date to commemorate the birth of the Europeanized Jesus. So people were already recognizing the birth of the Son at the time. And so what Rome did, Rome is just like somebody when you're playing dominoes, you know, and you shake those dominoes, and then, okay, you know, each player is supposed to take a set of dominoes, and then somebody just takes all the dominoes. That's what the Catholic Church has done. They took all the dominoes. People were already recognizing the birth of the Son, and they just inserted Jesus. And then, so Isa Musa Boroshango, he goes on, he says, for many years, there was much controversy over the exact date upon which Christmas should be celebrated. The Eastern Church at Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, celebrated the birth of Jesus, the visit of the wise men, and the baptism of Jesus on January 6th. And by the way, the Ethiopian Coptic Church, they recognize Jesus' birth on January 6th. It's referred to as the Feast of the Epiphany. When I was growing up, my father would not allow us to take down our Christmas tree at our house until after this date. That's right. So this date is observed by the Orthodox Church. Some other dates that were celebrated throughout the 300 or so years before the finalization was December 25th, January 8th, February 2nd, March 25th or 29th, April 19th, May 20th. May 20th. Bobby Gregg, they used your birthday at one point. September 29th, November 17th, and different dates in the month of August. In other words, they didn't know what day Jesus was born until these bishops got together. But you all think this date is sacred. Well, it actually is, but not what you think. It's actually sacred because it's the rebirth of the Son. Why should we be happy that the Son is reborn? Because then that brings in the season. See, we here in the United States, we eat food that's out of season. That's probably why we're getting so sick. You know, we're eating stuff that's out of season, and so we don't have to be concerned with the cycles of nature. But back then, and many places around the world, people live closer to the land, and so they watch the astronomical observances. And so as the sun breaks and is ending winter and bringing things back to life, that's why it was so important. All right, now he includes Reverend Isa Musa Boroshango. He includes this part of a speech that Frederick Douglass gave in 1882, relating his experiences as a slave during the Christmas season. He says, the days between Christmas Day and New Year's Day were allowed the slaves as holidays. During these days, all regular work was suspended. Kind of like, you know, today when we have like, you know, if a World Series or NBA championship or the Super Bowl, all oppression ceases. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. All right. Well, the regular work was suspended and there was nothing to do but keep fires and look after the stock. We regarded this time as our own by the grace of our masters, and we therefore used it or abused it as we pleased. The holidays were variously spent. The sober, industrious one employed themselves in manufacturing corn brooms, mats, horse collars, baskets, and some of these were made very well. Another class spent some time in hunting, opossums, coons, rabbits, and other game, but the majority spent the holidays in sports, playing ball, wrestling, boxing, running foot races, dancing, drinking whiskey, and the latter mode was generally most agreeable to their masters. See, the masters don't mind when you do these things like, you know, play sports, wrestle, run, dance, drinking, because you're not planning for liberation when you're doing those things. You know, you're not doing that. So the master, you know, kind of like that. They agreed that a slave who would work during the holidays was thought by the master undeserving of holidays. There was in this simple act of continued work an accusation against slaves, and slaves could not help thinking that if they had made $3 during the holidays, he might make $300 during the year. Not to be drunk during the holidays was disgraceful. This is the ice tree, sisters and brothers. You know, and so one of the reasons why, and we're going to talk about this next time we meet, one of the reasons why Dr. Karinga synthesized the holiday called Kwanzaa, and it starts the day after Christmas, is because that's the day, December 26th, is when the Christmas sales happen. You know, the prices drop, you know, because we're going to spend all our hard-earned money buying stuff that we don't need, that's not going to last, but it stimulates the economy. So the masters, they don't mind you doing that. But if you're studying a holiday called Kwanzaa, or if you're being industrious in any kind of way, then that's not really good for the economy. So another thing to think about during this holiday season. So, in conclusion, finally, and this is again from Isa Musa Boroshango, he says, finally, Christmas historically has no real religious significance except to the European world. As such, it has no real meaning for us as a people, for it does not culturally project us in a positive light. Now, there's something that I skipped here because, okay, you can get his book, African People, European Holidays and Mental Genocide, and he runs down. He says Santa, a big hairy imp. You know, is this something that we need to be teaching our children? You know, mistletoe, a parasitic plant. a reindeer. All of these things that have nothing to do with you, but put you in a mind that kind of lulls you to sleep, makes you listen to songs, and don't make you think about liberation. Okay? So, now, as I said, I'm like you. I listen to those songs. I listen to, one of my favorite soundtracks for this season is Vince Guaraldi's, Peanuts Christmas. I mean, it's masterful jazz compositions that's on there, and I really like to listen to it. So I'm not going to front like I don't listen to. If Nat King Cole comes on and sings Chestnuts Roasting, I'm going to pause. But one of my favorite songs from this season, and I think we should really focus on it during the holiday season, is a song by Stevie Wonder. Well, actually, I don't know if he wrote it, but he's the first one that I heard. Well, actually, he's not the first one that I heard to sing it. Actually, I first heard it on the Jackson 5 Christmas album, and Michael is singing it. But it's called Someday at Christmas. Someday at Christmas, men won't be boys playing with bombs like kids play with toys. Listen to this song as we close out. Uncle Job Seneb, life, prosperity, and health, live up.
Someday at Christmas, men won't be boys, playing with bombs like kids play with toys. One warm December, our hearts will see a world where men are free. Someday at Christmas, there'll be no wars, when we have learned what Christmas is for. When we have found what life's really worth, there'll be peace on earth. Someday all our dreams will come to me. Someday in a world where men are free. Maybe not in time for you and me, but someday at Christmas time. Someday at Christmas we'll see a land with no hungry children, no empty hand. One happy morning, people will share a world where people can. Well, someday at Christmas there'll be no tears. All men are equal, no man has fears. One shining moment, one prayer away from our world today. Someday all our dreams will come to me. Someday a world where men are free. Maybe not in time for you and me, but someday at Christmas time. Someday at Christmas, let go night there. Hate will be gone and love will prevail.
Someday at Christmas, man will not have failed. Hate will be gone and love will prevail. Life, prosperity, and health, live up.